if you guys have seen Sneako in the news recently, but he's like on the news for like being like an Islamic now, and he's debating Alex, and they're just talking about some bullshit. What the f happened to Sneako, bro? He was like one of my favorite YouTubers ever, bro. 2018 to 2020, like so good. I don't know what happened. I think drugs fried his brain or something.
Now, that video was taken about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I do think that it's a valid question. Every time that you look up, you are probably asking yourself or questioning the internet, hey, what actually happened to Sneako? Well, now the update is in. There's a new version, and it is stranger than ever. Sneako has taken on this new persona. He's got the glasses, he's got the suit, he's got the tie, he has the black power fist, and now he's taking on the persona of civil rights leader Malcolm X.
Dude, you see his Malcolm X LARP? First of all, you're not black, you're mixed. There's nothing Afro-American about you. You're Filipino, Haitian, and Hungarian Jew. You're not like him. That's one. Two, Malcolm X was smart. You're an idiot and a LARPer, and you're someone struggling with some kind of deep-seated identity issues.
Malcolm X was always one of my biggest inspirations, if not my biggest ever. And he's saying, yeah, you want to be Malcolm? You want to be Jeff? Shut up.
Oh, wait. As a real content creator, I know exactly what Sneako's doing. That's more like it. Somebody who's been creating content for a second, I know what it's like to put on a costume. But for Sneako, this isn't the first time that he's tried to reinvent himself. Granted, he was young when he was going through all these transformations, and honestly, that's natural when finding yourself. But after so many transitions, people start to question who you genuinely are. And I think the crazy part of it all is how different some of these versions exactly are. If you're new to this and you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It's gonna go a long, long way for the channel. Don't be a noob, subscribe to my tube, you. We're almost at 200K. Don't be late. Now, back into the video.
Not everyone is depressed. There's no way that so much of a generation is clinically depressed. To me, that's not possible. There's something going on, but it can't just be that everybody is feeling the same exact symptoms. There's no way that everyone here is clinically depressed. People spend 9 hours a day on their phones. People spend 5 hours laying on their side. Binge watching, man. Everyone binge watches, which is a symptom of depression. And originally my thesis was that it's because everyone's addicted to their phones. It's all day long staring like this.
That first era of Sneako is probably the one that most of YouTube and mainstream culture fell in love with. That was the one who was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about the world, questioning everything, what this is supposed to mean, what that is supposed to mean, and coming up with conclusions about the internet. Even though he wasn't doing the most insane types of YouTube videos, he was still a very creative and introspective person, at least for his generation and on YouTube. Now, that questioning and creative nature led him down the pathway that would lead to the most interesting moments on the peer-to-peer podcast, if I do say so myself.
That's how you know if you really like a girl. If you got to cheat on her and see if you feel bad, and then
What?
Sneako, stop.
That's what got you into trouble, man.
Yeah, stop.
That's what got you into trouble, man.
Now, the infamous Schmex Club clip does come from this same era of Sneako content, but you can tell that this is a totally different person. Probably someone that people would say is on the more normal side of things, outside of letting your girlfriend get pounded out. But we all know that this time period in history will lead Sneako down this pathway of what would be some of the worst content and worst person put out on the internet. This tweet reads, "The incel culture that has been pushed by Andrew Tate, Sneako, all these red pill losers are responsible for this poor 15-year-old girl getting, when you objectify women and reduce them as something but sheer things to get your gratification from, rejection is not something you expect."
Every man who ends up taking the red pill wants to fall in love. We all do. We want to have kids. We love women. It's not that my heart got broken. It's that all of you are annoying. All women say the same nonsense. All of you are predictable. All of you want lip fillers. All of you say the same garbage, and all of you are feminists. All of you are always victimizing yourself in a world where you have all the power. You didn't break my heart. You're just annoying.
This right here is where I would probably remark that the spiral went down. I talked about it in the last video, but I believe that Sneako is the introduction for a lot of some of the worst people that we know on the internet today. I'm talking about your Andrew and Tristan Tate, your Myron Gaines and Walter from Fresh and Fit, your Justin Wallers. The entire red pill community got a new breath for a younger audience with this young and unexpected crowd that was introduced to them by Sneako. Now, the reason is because Sneako was going down his own specific journey that he had to, you know, figure out and navigate. But the problem is that he did it online to a mainstream audience. So as you saw, his personality took on a whole different persona. The Tate influence started to take over.
I'm defending Tate because Tate represents masculinity, which is gone on the internet. It's so far gone that people like him are like, he's playing a character. And the same that Leon Lush and H3H3 say, everybody says to me, you're toxic, problematic, insecure, and
This is a guy who won a contest for being a super duper creative from Mr. Beast. This is a guy who was running around with the content group AMP. I was literally there as he was in some of the videos and just hanging out with especially the New York members like a Phantom or a Kai. And now his whole circle has changed to this red pill manosphere loser crew that is pumping out toxic masculinity, red pill content, and just some of the worst things that have ever graced this earth. For what it's worth, he wasn't even dressing fly no more. He just looked like a D-bag out of a DKNY or an Express. But then somewhere along the way, he decided that he was going to transition into the Islam game.
I smell the presence of the kuffar. Shoo! Begone, kafir! A Muslim is speaking. Your stench is of the kafir.
And even though there were people questioning the validity of him being a Muslim or not based off of how he was saying specific words, there were people who were actually thinking that this transformation was genuine.
It'll never not be funny that Sneako actually did sincerely revert to Islam because Andrew Tate fake reverted to Islam. Like, Sneako is like actually Muslim now.
But there's one thing to note here. Islam becomes a major part of his identity, which is fine because when you take on a new religion, normally you have to do some lifestyle changes, some speech changes, some food, diet changes. All these things are to be true. But in the grand scheme of it, for somebody who has been watching Sneako for a long time, this is another transformation, which was totally, and I do mean totally, polar opposite of his creative content, free living era days.
I think you're going on a good trajectory, but if you want my honest opinion, I think you're also doing a lot of damage and being very extreme in your rhetoric. I don't think you should say things like, I saw like some post that you said like a kuffar should be happy that they're like, we're talking to them or something. I mean, like, this is extreme. I mean, like, whereas it's not like we're angels descended from heaven or something.
And look, from my POV, if you change in your 20s, that's pretty normal and pretty healthy. But just like this other Muslim speaker was saying to him, the worst part about all of these things is that he goes on the complete deep end when it comes to these things. Even in his introspective era, he was saying some pretty far out stuff as far as trying to figure out his life, the purpose of young people. But then even as he gets into his free living era, I think it's pretty far out for most people to watch their girlfriends get pounded out by somebody at a Schmex club. And then when he goes into the red pill era, he goes to the furthest extent by platforming Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, Myron Gaines, and Walter from Fresh and Fit. I think that's pretty extreme. I didn't even get into the early era of his whole conquest where he started platforming Kanye West and making him mainstream and popular again. And then on the Islam side of things, he's pretty extreme. All of these are super duper on the opposite ends of the spectrum. But I think if you wanted a clear example as to how far Sneako was willing to go when it comes to changing his personalities, I think the Andrew Tate of it all is a perfect scenario.
I'm defending Tate because Tate represents masculinity, which is gone on the internet.
For years, Andrew Tate wasn't just another person that Sneako associated with. In the eyes of his audience, he was somebody that he really looked up to, defended routinely. Some would even go as far as to say idolized. They existed in red pill circles together. They streamed together. They partied together. This would become somebody that Sneako was associated with and maybe as a byproduct would introduce his young audience to. But then all of a sudden, their relationship just fell apart. And now, months later, Sneako is denouncing everything, and I do mean everything that has to do with Andrew and Tristan Tate and the whole lifestyle and ideology that they've been preaching for the past few years.
Now when I see Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate are in jail, inshallah, I hope they rot in jail for the rest of their lives. Wallahi, I do. Allegedly, I think they're guilty. I hope they rot in jail forever. Wallahi, I do. I pray for the kuffar humiliation.
But see, this is where a lot of people have a problem with a Sneako or anybody who does these radical online changes. When you look at the charges as to what Andrew and Tristan Tate are facing, nothing is new. The personality isn't new. The crimes that they're facing aren't new. The allegations aren't new. Nothing about them has changed, but the date on the calendar, to be quite honest with you. Their beliefs still are the same. Their ideologies about women are still the same. All of these things remain the same. So when you look around, you've kind of got to ask yourself, well, what has really changed? Was it the fallout that made things happen? Did Sneako actually take a deeper look into these things? Maybe he was blinded by the friendship of it all. Maybe he's ebbing and flowing with his community to make sure that he's still popular in their eyes. But I just find it strange with what most of the internet does find strange as well is that, hey, how come you're riding with this guy and saying that he's innocent, and then when your friendship / relationship starts to fall apart, all of a sudden they deserve to rot in prison? Allegations are allegations, crimes are crimes, regardless of the friendship status, and influence is influence, something that you ultimately do have. It's kind kind of reckless to go out there and defend the guy, knowing or even thinking that there's a level of guilt involved in their actions. To hell with the whole concept of like, you know, there's some benefit of the doubt here because it's my friend. If you think that this person did this, you can distance yourself wholeheartedly. But it's just strange that now all of a sudden, hey, this guy deserves to rot in jail, as if this is something new that's going on. And so now people are questioning him. Do Sneako's worldviews and beliefs change as his friends do, as opposed to getting some of his own? Now, on the surface, Sneako separating himself from all of these old friends and old ways is a positive thing. I mean, look at the circle of dudes that he was around. I can't tell you how big of losers everybody in this picture is. Tate, Clavicular, Nick Fuentes, Sneako, Myron. These are the red pill Avengers. Now, just as of January this year, they were still publicly associating with each other. But now, all of a sudden, they are clashing day in and day out. And it's Sneako who is the one that's on the opposite end of the spectrum from these guys. Whether it be his public lashings for Nick Fuentes.
He goes on a show and he talks about Hassan Piker. Hassan's a communist and he's anti-white. Hassan Piker is far whiter than Pablo Fuentberg. Avocados from Mexico. Hassan Piker, 100% European. Pablo Fuentberg is a Mexican Sephardic Jew.
Or whether it be his admonishings of Andrew Tate and all of the things that he's done. Now Sneako feels as though he's the guiltiest thing in the world all of a sudden.
You made an empire and a career making men and you bragged about it. You went on the Full Send podcast and bragged to Steiny, Salim, and Kyle that you went under the desk to start typing and knew the best ways to make guys. That was your empire. That's how you built it. That's how you made a name for yourself. That's how you're rich.
Hell, he's even had issues with newcomer to the Red Pill Avengers group, Clavicular, which seemed like Clavicular didn't really give a shit. But this one is more of like a moral / ethical dilemma as opposed to like him just outright hating them.
Yeah, we saw this earlier. He's dissing Gaza here.
After we get out of this entrapment here. This is the Gaza Strip.
If he doesn't apologize for this, I am never gonna call him a friend again. It's too bad. I was actually just talking to him a few hours ago. I didn't see this before. I can't be friends with somebody doing this.
All of these guys that Sneako was once heavily associated with, once would go to bat for, to the ends of the earth with, ride or die with, he is now beefing with them on a week in to week out basis. And on surface level, you would think that like, hey, this is great. He's shedding the Red Pill moniker, shedding the Red Pill community as a whole. Maybe we'll get back to old Sneako or some sort of reformed Sneako, and he could rise back to the levels that he once was pre going down all these transitions and transformations. But the one that's very complicated to me is the Tate of it all. Before people are ready to accept the fact that he is a changed man, you gotta ask yourself, did he stop associating with Andrew and Tristan Tate because he stopped agreeing with them? Or did he stop associating with them because the relationship fell apart? Sneako seems to be loyal of all of the guys that he hangs around with. But once the relationship ultimately sours, there's a ton of criticisms that he could have made years ago that all of a sudden start to come out. Maybe he isn't consciously LARPing, and maybe he's just heavily influenced by all of the guys that he's around at any given time. And now in mid to late 2026, it seems as though he has squashed / washed that old list. He has cleared off that whiteboard, and now he's adding a bunch of new people to said list.
Jake Shields a real one. Tucker Sang was correct right now. I like Tucker. There's a lot of real. Daniel Kikachu is a real one. Muhammad Ajab. We have Sheikh Uthman, Muslim Lantern. Candace Owens is a real one. Andrew Callahan's a real one. Ian Carroll, Professor Jang.
But now this brings us to the new version of Sneako, because the question isn't whether this version of him is better than the last version of him. If this many people have this much influence over his overall personality, the real question is, will this version last any longer than the previous one? You know, maybe every version of Sneako was real at some point. The creative version, the red pill version, the Muslim version, now the current version. I would hope not the time when he was spinning with Kanye. We kind of just bury that. Not because we're trying to hide anything, because that is just some of the most disgusting shit in the world, but maybe that version was real too. I don't know. Hopefully not. Maybe he believed that he was genuinely close to Andrew Tate and some of the stuff that he was saying was true and right. Maybe he changed religions and found solace in the Muslim faith. And maybe he genuinely believes the things that are going on now and what he's saying to be so right and true. The problem is that Sneako seems to attach himself so strongly to whatever person or worldview he's around that when those relationships change, he changes with them. And because he's done that publicly for years, every new version of Sneako comes with the same exact questions. I don't like the fact that he does these things so publicly as well. I get it that if you go through a transformation, it's probably going to bleed into all of your life. But when you mix it with the extremist nature, he introduces some of the worst people to mainstream media. And then he tries to later on, after he's done with it, put the tube back in the toothpaste. My brother, the toys are already out on the floor. Mommy's already stepped on them. The damage has already been done. You can't kind of just reel it back in and say like, oh, Andrew Tate is a bad guy. No, 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 no. So many young people have already been impacted and affected. And sure, maybe you lead some people down a righteous light on the way there. Maybe you do get a guy to go to the gym. Maybe you do get a guy to look at the Muslim faith and find solace in that. And this was probably somebody who was doing some damage in the streets and now has some sort of identity in a faith. I think that all that is cool, but think about all the other surrounding damage that could be done while you were talking about some of the most extremist things in the world. And because he's done this for so many years, every new version of Sneako comes with pretty much the same exact question. Is this actually who he is now, or is this just who he is until the next phase of Sneako comes along? Phase Sneako? Banks, I got an idea.